Tell us briefly about yourself. And please do mention that you're one of us. You're a resident. You're a homeowner. You're a taxpayer. And feel free, man. Floor is yours.
Well, with regard to who I am, originally I'm from Canada. Many years ago, I was a real estate broker licensed to do appraisal work.
Whoa.
I became a developer and have built thousands of multifamily units, 28,000 some odd single family lots. In addition to being a 35-year plus builder developer, I have a background in statistical probability and quantitative finance. So I understand markets, I understand math extremely well, and I understand what it is to build from ground zero, like start from scratch, and take it all the way up to a 35-floor high-rise.
Wow.
Been there, done it, understand it. That's kind of my background and how we got where we are somewhat. And in 2016, I went to Denton Central Appraisal District to protest my taxes. And a very weird thing happened that the RPA looked at my property file, because we did our income and expense analysis, says this is what the property's worth. And he said, well, I have to get permission, I have to go to the back to get permission to negotiate a value down. And the hair on the back of my neck stood up. I mean, I smelled a rat right on the spot. So he came back the first time and said, well, but we think the value is this. And I said, based on what? I said, this is my spreadsheet, this is my numbers. You have no business superimposing anything on my numbers because my numbers are actual. So I pushed back pretty hard, and he went back to the back room again. I think he just basically said, this guy's not going to give up. So they came to my number. Okay, we walked out. But when I left that meeting, I told my attorney at that time, I said, whatever's going on here, there's a wizard behind the screen playing with these numbers. And it's in violation of the law because there is no computer system on this planet that can do what they are attempting to do with people. So we figured it out in 2016. Well, since then, we have literally had to file a lawsuit every year, nonstop, on the commercial properties as well as my house. In 2017, we started to log all these problems, and the file grew, and it grew, and the data grew, and the evidence grew. And you can see all the evidence on our website. I mean, it's all there. There's gigabytes of data. And what's so important about that data, we didn't invent it. We didn't invent their audio tapes. We didn't invent their videotapes. We didn't invent their numbers. What we did is take their numbers and prove that their actions are in fact criminal. And we did that by breaking down what the law says. So what in reality we've done is we've tied USPAP, Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice, to the math, and USPAP is fine. But we tied it to the math, we tied it to the Texas Property Tax Code, we tied it to the Texas Constitution, and then we tied it to the US Constitution. In essence, we built a box that they can't get out of. It's their documents, their evidence, and to that point, here's a list right here of 67 documents, including USPAP, including the property valuation study. Everything that a CAD touches is literally being ignored. They are literally violating every single appraisal law ever written. And all the evidence proves it. So that's kind of a short answer to what could be a very long answer, but that's the bottom line.
Wow. And the purpose of us meeting today is to get your message and story out. And also, you have a petition. Can you tell us a little bit about the petition, what it's about, and your latest petition numbers as well? How's that going?
The petition is designed to help the judges that we will be in front of understand that this affects mom and pop. And it's crucial because we can tell the judge, these are real people. This is not the Mitch Wexler show.
Right.
This is real people that are being smashed to smithereens, where their houses are being stolen by overvaluation and overtaxation. These two things are completely illegal, and this is what is happening. And we've not only are we looking for those petitions, but we also have emails coming in by the day literally of people's houses being stolen. If you don't pay the taxes, we will take your house. And we can get into the math on that if you wish later. The answer to your question is, how's the petition going? I think as of this morning, we're about 1387. We're gaining about 100 a day, which is really, really good.
Okay.
It's important to keep it up. We want to drive it. We need to drive these videos. There's 144 million single-family homes in the United States. There's simply no reason why every single-family homeowner should not see these videos and understand what's happening to them.
And I assume by that know their rights and what processes are available to them, because many of the people we talk to, some of the responses we've heard as we led into this is that they're like, well, everybody's kind of getting taken advantage of together. Is we trust our government. They couldn't be doing this. Why would they do that? You know, what is their motivation? You know, so that seems to be the general consensus from some of just the homeowners that we've spoken to. It was just kind of a bit of a shock. Like, but wait a minute, you're complaining about it. And then also, to add to that, I was really shocked by the numbers that you put up in Dallas County, something like 500,000 homes and only 70,000 people show, and out of the cases, do you recall that number?
People are very busy in their lives. People have 1 job, 2 jobs, 3 jobs. They don't have the time to focus on this. But let me tell you something. If your husband or your wife loses their job, you won't be thinking that this is a one-person process, because you won't be able to afford the roof over your head based on the taxes. So why are they doing this? Because they've created a fraud over the last 30 years by pumping money into the system. And now the turkey is going to come home. And that's exactly what's happening. Everything you're involved in, everything you see with regard to these CADs is a direct result of keeping that fraud going. Wow, we got to have money for the school systems. That's a fraud. Your school districts are bankrupt. Look at it this way. What's the assets of a school district? Nothing.
The dirt you said under the building.
It's the dirt under the buildings, except the dirt under the buildings is levered through the bonds. In the case of LISD, we did an analysis on them. That's the Louisville Independent School District. We couldn't find a single bond in the last 3 years that's been paid off. So what are they doing? Well, they roll up the bonds when they come due, and they roll out the bonds. When they roll out the interest payment, they go from what it was 3 years ago, give or take 2.7%, to today's world at 8.5%. How smart are you? That's a 400% increase because you didn't do your job when you had the ability to retire the bonds. The school districts are bankrupt. Over and above that, just last week, there was a second meeting, 2 weeks in a row. At the meeting that the Tarrant Appraisal District put forward, a lady by the name of Emily wrote a fantastic article. There was roughly 15 school districts that showed up at that second meeting with their handout. They were the only people allowed to talk in that meeting. With their handouts that you must keep increasing the value of these properties or we are bankrupt.
And that was in Texas, right?
That's in Tarrant County,
Right.
Fort Worth.
Wow.
So the point being that what I'm saying, you can't bury your head. If you don't take action now, this will not be recoverable. We're trying to arm mom and pop with enough information to be able to stand up and at least protest. First off, know what's happening in your life, because this issue touches you every single day. Second of all, arm up in such a way that you can stand in front of these ARB panels and say, here is my property's evidence. Here are my property's comps. And so even on that point, watch this one for a second. You got 6 comparisons on an average property, okay? If 2 of those comparisons are not in fact comparisons, as they did, speaking personally on my house, I had a comparison in Carrollton. Okay, I live in Copper Canyon. Carrollton's 35 miles away. North Lake is 28 miles away. They're not comparisons. Here's the problem, and it goes to your point. You have what's called a cumulative compound effect. So Don Spencer, the chief appraiser at Denton Central Appraisal District, stood in front of the board in October 23 and said, we took 60,000 properties outside of the database, manipulated them, his words, in Excel and put them back. Well, I happen to have something called an infection rate spreadsheet. We got busy. We ran the spreadsheet. That one statement alone with those 60,000 properties proves irrefutably, because it's their testimony under threat of perjury, that the database is 76% corrupt.
What do you mean by that? Corrupt?
It's totally corrupt. It's garbage. Because if you have two comparisons on 6 properties, those 2 are not comparisons. But the cumulative compound effect of using those 2 in another neighbor, in another neighbor, in another neighbor, it takes exactly 2 years, and you run it up to 76% corrupt database. Now, let's assume that Don Spencer lied. Good assumption. Let's say it's 80,000. That 80,000 turns into 92% corrupt data. You can literally pick that database up and go light it on fire because it isn't worth a damn. So when these ARB people and these RPAs, when you go into those meetings, say, well, we believe that the property is worth X, and they're using comparisons that aren't comparisons, first of all, who gives a damn what you believe? The question is, what can you prove? And you can't prove it because your database is corrupt.